Hey, what's up? It's your boy Psycho, aka ToySniper98. It's that time of the year again when FGO YouTubers start throwing out videos talking about raid-up schedules, top 10 servants you gotta roll for the upcoming year, etc, etc. I haven't done one of these yet myself, but seeing that everyone apparently loves these kinds of videos, just going off their view counts, I figured I'd jump on the bandwagon too for this. But rather than make a video that's all about who the most broken upcoming servants are, as everyone else does, I'm gonna make a negative 200 IQ play and make this video about all the best upcoming farming servants for NA 2019, as per my channel. That'll probably get like only a tenth of the views, since no one apparently gives a shit about farming except for me and other whales. Two disclaimers about this video, as per usual. This video is not meant to be a meta list or a tier list or whatever, since I know how much people love to jerk themselves off over those. This video is only intended to explain why the servants featured here are great farmers. This has nothing to do with how well they stack up in the game's quote-unquote meta. Also, because I don't actually play JP, and thus have no prior intricate knowledge of all the upcoming servants, there very well may be ones whom I'm overlooking here because for the most part I only have their wiki entries to work with. There may be servants who are very useful for farming certain events that I just don't know about, or servants who are low-key farming monsters in general. So if you're a JP elitist, don't roast me too hard, okay? That's what Reddit's for. So let's get into it, starting with the SSRs first in chronological order, of which there are only 3. First up is Chiara. She'll debut with part 2 of the CCC event in about late April or early May, and she's an AoE alter ego. She's got a 50% battery, a 30% AoE defense debuff, and post-interlude her first skill reduces its target's arts resistance by 30%, which is more or less like having a 30% arts buff against that target. The fact that she's an alter ego means that she's got 50% bonus damage against all cavalry classes and the usual double damage against Zerks, making her a very useful general farmer against anything involving a lot of cavalry class enemies. Just a warning though, because she doesn't have true class affinity against anything except foreigners, she probably won't do as much damage as you might expect her to without her skill buff, unless you're a Mega Whale and you get her to like MP5 or something. And for what it's worth, Chiara only ever has 2 raid-ups in JP, so if you plan on getting her to a high MP level, you might as well do that with CCC. At least I think she only has 2 raid-ups. Could be wrong about that. Second is Imouto Caster, who debuts with Summer Part 1 of 2019 in about the beginning of August. Nero Caster is an AoE caster and is probably the second best farmer and perhaps the best overall farmer in this video. Her first skill is a 50% battery, her second skill buffs her by 30% for 3 turns, her attack that is, and her third skill is a targetable 3-turn 50% attack buff, basically a damage steroid. And her MP Overcharge gives her a 320% MP damage buff on Overcharge level 1. This means that Nero can potentially give herself a 160% damage buff for her MP, which more or less means that Da Vinci may as well not even be in the game. But that's okay, so she's in FGO Arcade now, so she'll be good over there, I guess. And the third is Ereshkigal, who debuts with Christmas 2019 in December as an AoE Lancer. She has a 50% Buster Steroid and a 50% battery on one skill, so thanks DW for the power creep, I guess. Oh, and you should be seeing a pattern here with 50% batteries. Her MP also has a small buster buff on his overcharge, and with her third skill she can cast a 20% attack buff on her team for 3 turns for a little bit of party utility. However, keep in mind that Ereshkigal's attack is quite low for SSRs in general, so she might not hit as hard as you might think she should. Now let's move on to the SRs, of which there are 7 whom we'll discuss here. First up is ChaCha, who debuts with Guru Guru 2 in about April. I don't really have a whole lot to talk about her other than the fact that she is a welfare AoE berserker, which is pretty much her only saving grace as far as I can see, since none of her skills nor her MP have any sort of direct party attack buff or self buff that are useful for farming. But again, welfare AoE Zerk, and she's the only one of her kind if I'm not mistaken, so you might as well make some use out of her. Next is Pence, who debuts with Agartha in about July. She has both a Charisma and a Party Buster buff for multiplicative buff stacking for your teammates, and she's a single target Berserker, so she'll handle the big mobs for you if she's strong enough. Plus, as a Berserker, she has 3 Buster cards, which is ideal for farming if you need the base card. Next is Medjed, who debuts with Summer 2019 Part 1 along with Umu. She's an AoE assassin, and we all know how many of those there are in the game. She doesn't have as strong insta-killing power as her usual caster self, but in exchange, her third skill has both a 30% attack buff and a 20% MP buff that'll boost her damage quite a bit, and her MP debuffs enemy defense by 20% so that it gets softened up for face cards if they still survive, or for a follow-up MP. Next is Raikou Lancer, who debuts with Summer 2019 Part 2. She's a single target Lancer who has a targetable 40% Buster buff and a 20% Charisma, both of which are valuable buffs. I'd also explain that she's a crit monster, but then we start talking about meta, and that's not what this video is about. Besides, you have other people for that. Next is Ishtar Rider, who debuts with Summer 2019 as his welfare servant. Nothing too flashy, but she does have a party 20% quick and Buster buff, and her MP has another quick buff on his overcharge, 20% at level 1. Plus, she's a welfare AoE rider and everyone loves free stuff, and even more if it's Rin. Next is Parvati, who debuted during JP's Heaven's Feel promotional campaign that occurred during October in 2017, so who the hell knows when we'll get her. And before you can start talking my ear off about how you hate her fucking artwork, let me calm you down by saying that she's one of the candidates for the double Scotty loop strats. I think. Her first skill is both a 30% quick and MP generation buff, and her second skill is a damage steroid at a 50% attack buff, so together, she hits like a fucking truck. And with double Scotty, she hits like a nuke. So get off your artistic high horse and roll for her. Lastly, Santa Altera is a single target archer who also debuted with Christmas 2019, this time as his welfare. She doesn't have a lot going for her as a strict farmer per se, except for one thing. She has a huge targetable 30% NP damage buff, which is probably one of the only, if not the only, skills of its kind. Plus, her first skill also has a small 20% targetable MP charge on it, so it could come in handy for a teammate who's missing 20% charge, though we'll have to see. And finally, the low star hero herself, Paul. She'll show up as a welfare servant, obviously, for the All the Statesmen event in about August, and she's got a 20% party buster buff, a 20% AoE defense debuff, and a 2-second MP that also inflicts a 10% defense debuff at overcharge level 1. The 2-second MP should have already sold you on her, so don't you dare miss that event. One more mention before we wrap up this video. This one isn't a new servant per se, but because NA has Clairvoyance A+++, Dante's becomes the undisputed best farmer in the game thanks to double Scotty memes, and the Prison Tower rerun that shows up at the end of January is your next chance to get him. So yeah, hopefully he doesn't steal away your quartz that you've been saving up for MHX Alter. Oh, and speaking of MHXA, while I didn't mention her in this video until now, there is one place that I know where she can become a very critical component of a farming team. The best Lotto node in Christmas 2019 has you fight a Saberface that has over 400k HP, meaning that MHXA is one of possibly only 2 options for that wave for a reliable 3-turn, the other option being Gil. So if you plan on rolling hard for MHXA, and you also expect to farm a lot in the Christmas 2019 event, she could come in handy. I'm just saying. And that should about do it. Again, let me reiterate that this video may not have covered all the good farming servants who are slated to come out for 2019 on NA, only the ones that I could see who seem to be good on paper, since that's the most I can do as a filthy NA pleb. Special thanks, by the way, to Direwolf from the FGO subreddit Discord for helping me with this video. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays and Happy New Year as well. I'll have the Drake video go up soon, TM, and until next time, deuces.